Welcome to another episode of the Reboot Chronicles, a no-holds-barred forum with global leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, and CEOs about how organizations stay focused on growth and innovation in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean DeBias, coming to you live from Reviv's North American headquarters in Chicago, and we would like to thank you for joining us from around the globe today. I'd like to welcome Shelley Zalis, digital research pioneer, entrepreneur, and the CEO of Female Quotient, which has led a movement to enhance the presence and impact of women from the corporate world to startups. Shelley, it's great to see you.
I'm so happy to be here, and I love the whole concept of reboot. So
yeah, let's talk about rebooting people's lives today a little bit. I love your work. Our paths have intertwined so many ways over the years. We won't bore the audience with that, but some good stories we can tell later on. Maybe just to kick it off, what are some of your current goals with Female Quotient, both from a corporate point of view as well as an entrepreneurial, maybe startup lens, which we'll kind of get into in pretty depth today?
well, I mean, my nickname is Chief Troublemaker. So, I mean, if that
I've heard that, yes.
I mean, it's all about breaking the rules and rewriting them, especially when they don't make sense. So I think, for me, my mission really is about changing the equation and closing the gender gaps. And, I own truly the trademark business of equality. So that's what it's all about for me.
What are you trying to actually focus on right now? What's your main goal of the group? You started it how many years ago?
About 6 years ago.
Yeah. So when you look forward to, let's say 2024, and how do you define success looking back at that? Kind of give me a glimpse into where you want to drive this movement.
For me, it's all about truly helping women rise to leadership. So when we talk about the gaps, there really are a lot of gaps in Fortune 500. There are gender gaps, there are pay gaps, there are pipeline gaps, there are policy gaps, and especially coming out of the pandemic, the gaps have all widened. So we have to close those gaps, and we have to stop talking about the problems and start activating the solutions for change. And that does require a conscious mindset.
And then what are some of the things that you guys are doing at Female Quotient to impact that? Let's maybe separate them from the corporate world, which is getting better, by the way. So I do a lot of work with DEI on corporate boards. You are kind of diving in at various different levels. What have you seen any successes? Have you guys made some impacts there?
Yeah, I think the greatest impact is really not at the HR level, it's at the C-suite level. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, it's about leadership. It's at the leadership level. And it really is about, as I said, consciousness, making leadership aware of where the challenges are. And then it's about once conscious, then it's about choice and the decisions that leadership makes about what kind of company, what kind of culture they want to create to create the changes that need to be made. And it's not just about retrofitting. It's about starting from where you are, where you want to go, and then how you want to get there. And that does require tough decisions. And they're actually not really tough. If you want to create a culture that attracts and retains your best talent, stop focusing on all the people that have left, but start paying attention to the talent that you have and what that's going to require to create the right culture to retain the best talent.
So you started something called the Equality Lounge, and what's been the impact of that? You convene groups of mostly women, I assume, usually at kind of big events like the ones that we attend all over the world. How's that going? What's the impact there?
It's been really amazing. Actually, it's majority women, but plenty of men now. So it started as the girls' lounge to take on the boys' club. So it really was a safe space for women
Sure.
at big industry conferences that were predominantly men, so that women had a place to feel safe, secure, and be with like-minded other women. And that's really how it started. The opposite of boy is girl, the opposite of club is lounge. So if there's a boys club now, there's a girls lounge. So at the beginning, that's how it started. And it was really funny because women at the beginning said, but we're not girls, we're women. And I said, have you ever heard of a man object to being a boy in the boys club? Why are we creating our own double standards? And the Girls Lounge became a household name. We were doing upwards of 70 pop-ups at big industry conferences, from CES to the World Economic Forum, and truly changing the equation at big industry conferences. And then the Girls Lounge turned into the Equality Lounge, where plenty of men. It's not about men or women, it's about leadership. And it is a place where it's the power of collaboration. It's a place where leaders from Fortune 500 come together and collaborate on solutions for change all around policy, pipeline, and parity. How do we talk about issues impacting women in the workplace so that we collectively can create solutions for change and share ideas, which is unheard of in this industry. We've all kept secrets from one another. But the truth is, and it's what we say, a company alone has power. Collectively, we have impact. We historically have all been doing the same thing separately. But if we can come together and share solutions for change, we won't keep talking about it. We can actually make monumental change by working together. And that's what we've been seeing. So equality lounges, especially in places like the World Economic Forum, where we can talk about big issues like flexibility, which now we're talking about. How do we create flexible schedules? How do we create, caregiving solutions in the workplace? How do we share these kinds of solutions so we can take giant steps forward? That's how we create progress. And we don't just talk about these things, but we actually create solutions for change, and we hold ourselves accountable. That's how change happens. And that's what the Equality Lounge is all about. So pre-pandemic, we were doing 70 pop-ups a year. And then during the pandemic, we started something called Global Exchange. We hosted over 700 conversations in over 100 countries, sharing ideas from different corporations, from different countries, learning from one another. And that's how change happens, when we listen to what women need, what women want in different countries, in different corporations, and that's how progress happens. And that's what we've been doing. And that's how we advise different companies, by learning from one another and listening to each other.
Any specific examples of what's come out of that in terms of where you've seen some changes in companies?
Well, one of the biggest things that we're learning, the She session has been enormous. We've gone back with pay equity over 25 years with what's going on. And, companies have been eliminating jobs or cutting salaries without really proactively thinking about the implications during the pandemic. And when you eliminate entry-level positions, that has historically been women's jobs. And we already know what the pay gap has been. So that right away has set us back. So that was a big mistake where we weren't proactively thinking about it. Or with flexible schedules. We've been thinking about the 3-2 schedule, 3 days on, 2 days off. But if we make that elective, who's going to take those opportunities?
No, I'll take the 2 days on, 3 days off myself.
Okay, yes, but who's going to really opt in for those? Caregivers. Caregivers are still predominantly women.
Yep. Yeah.
That's going to be another problem.
So
these are the kinds of issues that we are hearing and listening to. And so if we actually pause and think about the implications, these are the kinds of things that when we listen to what women around the globe are talking about. My girlfriend Eve Rodsky has something called fair play, and she has something called predictive flexibility, which is ensuring that different teams take the same day during the week, the same hours, so that we can create this predictive flexibility. So these are the kinds of things that we're starting to think about that will go a long way to ensuring successful outcomes within organizations.
Right. I've been thinking about just how different, so let's just switch to startups and entrepreneurship both men and women. But so in Chicago, a group that I helped start called 1871. It's a civic organization, but it's one of the largest incubators in the world, rated as one of the top year after year. And we created a program called WISTEM, not a great name, but Women in STEM. I think over 10 years ago, really successful program. We've kind of learned over time how to identify, nurture, and support female founder journeys, which is very different from just getting startups going, which is what usually happens there. But we have regular cohorts, and as you know, cohorts let about 10 to 20 companies in, or people in, or entrepreneurs in, and that can be somewhat competitive. So they're in, the rest of them maybe are out. And I think we are making a huge impact in Chicago and the Midwest. And we also have similar DEI initiatives for Hispanic, Black, neighborhood targeted programs. But I'm concerned about impact. So my question is, I'm wondering, there's so many programs around the world like this. So I'm always looking for better ways to, how do you scale these and make them better? So we have massive mentorship programs. We've got, I think, 400 mentors, still not enough. So I'm just wondering, from your business model perspective, have you thought about how can you help groups like that have massive momentum? Kind of how can you partner with them and help them scale even better, or vice versa? How can they help you scale? Any thoughts there?
Well, listen, I'm so many women, when we talk about the Great Resignation, we see so many women leaving Fortune 500 companies to start their own businesses. And, mainly it's because, especially women and younger women, leaving because they are redefining what success means to them today. And it is definitely not about money. It's about flexibility and purpose. And that is what they are looking for today, and defining their own what success means to them today. And so that's what we are seeing. And so this is what is so incredibly important to them. And so I advise so many female founders, being one myself, and that's why I left the Fortune 500 world. I wanted to be my own boss, define, what success meant, what success meant to me, and, live my own life and create my own rules. So I help so many female founders. And I think that the power of the collective, especially when you're a female founder, is so incredibly important. You don't have your own so much money to have your own marketing and your own attorneys and your own accountants when you're starting out. You need the resources, the collective resources. And actually, I'm helping a bank that started just to help women. It's for female founders. And it is phenomenal because it's shared resources at the top. So any of your female founders, I'm happy to send them to the First Female Bank, which is for shared resources for female founders putting their money into this bank for that exact reason. And then
there's a couple groups like that. Is that the one in San Francisco?
No, it's in the Midwest, as a matter of fact.
Okay, good. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
By the way, also, Dean, there's PepsiCo. Stacy started something called Founded by Her, which is a directory of female founders,
right,
which is also phenomenal. So many resources for female founders, and I advise so many of them. So anyone can call me, and I'm happy to help them find their way through, any of their challenges, because, startups have a lot of challenges and so many opportunities.
Well, yeah, absolutely. My question wasn't just about ours, 1871, but there's so many programs around the world. It seems like a good opportunity for you. But personally, I think there's actually never, ever been a better time to be a female founder. I work with tons of them. I've interviewed probably half of the interviews on this show in the last 2 years have been female founders and CEOs, both from large corporations like, an Avon or a Vitamin Shop, down to indie brands. There's so many indie brands that are popping out of the woodwork in health, beauty, wellness, food, fashion, as you know pretty well. So I think that's, so let's kind of shift into that. There is no shortage of issues that startups face, no matter who's running it. From inception, let's say, all the way through to, startup phase is one thing, but to actually the challenges that you face, female entrepreneurs are facing today to kind of get to a much more sustainable program. Kind of, you look at the roadblocks. Let's take an example, like Jennifer Hyman, the CEO of Rent the Runway. She had to face a lot of naysayers that says this will never work. It's just, it's just not something that you should take on. And she overcame it. It was remarkable what happened. Now they're a public company, and many female founders find that inspirational. So I guess What are the top tips that you would, or maybe start with the challenges first? What do you think are the top 3 challenges that female founders face right now, starting up, let's say, an early stage company? And then let's go into your maybe top 5 or 10 tips about how to attack those.
Well, I mean, first of all you need is one yes. So you got to follow your heart.
That's a good one.
I have to say, you got to follow your heart, and you got to be you. And so one of the things, I'll give you the first one that is so near and dear to my heart. And this is from Oscar Wilde, which is be yourself because everyone else is taken. So that is one of the most important things I have to say, is be true to who you are. When I started my company, and my investors gave me this deck, and they said, this is, it was a banker's deck, and my company was a wow factor. And when I was going to raise money, they handed me this banker's deck, and they said, this is the deck that you're going to take, your pitch deck. And I said,
they just took all the excitement out of the room with that.
Yeah. And they said, this is what I said. This is not me. I am not taking this to investors. It's all little numbers on a page. There's no wow to it. Nothing excites and delights me. No way. And they said, this is what you're taking. And I said, I'm not doing it. And I went back and I did my own deck, and it had like wow factor on every page. And it was so not normal. And I had 10 out of 10 offers, and I didn't care what they said. So follow your heart and be you. Number one. All you need is one yes. And that is my first piece of advice. My second is you need to be the first, the second, and the third. The first is the originator, which means you are going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. There's no ecosystem. You're not going to have the money. You're usually going to fail. And, that is that. The second's the copycat. Someone's going to come in, copy your ideas, but they don't know what's under the hood. The third is the sweeper. They win. They get, the money. You already built the ecosystem, and they come in riding on the white horse, and they pick it all up and they win. So you have to be the first, the second, and the third. So don't give up. Just copy yourself, and then make sure that you win at your own game. So
you can't come in and be the third, like a Facebook kind of thing
you have to be your own third.
Did invent the third, but took over, copied and took over.
Yeah, you have to be your own third. No one was going to beat me at my own game. So never give up. When you have your big idea, don't give up, copy yourself, and then beat yourself. So jump your own market. So that's the third thing I have to say. Never quit. The third is when passion meets purpose, you're unstoppable. So always believe in you. So, there's always a solution. You just have to find it. That is really the truth. And, when others zig, you got to zag. So, if you really believe in what you're doing, you will find a way. And, these are things that I just have to tell you, there were so many things that were roadblocks for me, but I always believed in what I was doing, and I was not going to let it go. So no matter how many people tell you you're wrong, they do not know. If you know that you're right, you just keep pushing forward, and you will find the ways around. And, that's what it means to be the inventor and the OG, the original. You will know because it's your baby. When it's your baby, the doctor might say, that the baby's fine. If there's something wrong, you'll know. So keep with it and find a way. There's always a solution.
Watch out for those doctors and VCs. They don't always have the best advice, or decks for that matter.
And they're wrong, it's really funny because I had one of my first VCs, they always think they know, but they don't really understand the nuances. And if I listened to the advice of one of my first VCs that said, this is the way you're going to do it, and I really remember I had to stand up to him and say, you're wrong. And it was really hard for me to say that to him, but he was. And had I listened to his advice, I would not have had the business that I had. So, you got to know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer. I've scaled so many companies. Is you're pushing the envelope of the business model, and they find that extremely uncomfortable, or they're obsessed with business model. And that's all they want to talk about. So you can't paint them all with a broad brush. When I talk to female entrepreneurs, I do a lot of mentoring and helping them on a few of their boards as well. the more personal stuff comes up, the uncertainty, they're scared, the fear, same stuff I have, that nothing to do with being a female, but I see it compounded. And to me, what I've noticed is it depends where they came from. If they just came out of a corporate environment, which is what I coach a lot of them to do, and this is their first startup, versus you who've, been there, done that, you don't scare me kind of look, it's different. So I find giving advice in this category is very situational. It's like, got to meet them where they are, I think is what you said.
Well, it's really funny because when I first started, when I pioneered online research, it didn't exist. And I remember when I was going to, raise money, they said, well, we need your business plan. And I said, but I have no competitive set. There is no one in my category.
No comps, huh?
I have no comps. I said, so I can make up the numbers, but I'm going to be making them up because I have no competitive set. I have nothing to compare myself to. And, I was being very brutally honest. And that's what I did. I kind of made up the numbers because there was actually no category. And I was the first in the category. And so, that was the reality at the time.
Yeah.
So, that was
I would to throw out some words. I would put that in the creative category. You're creative. Also courage. You're very brave. And these are the things I tell people, but it's like actually helping them do it is something different. Sometimes you have to get kicked around a lot before you change the way you approach and the way you go in. And it might be your second startup. Who knows? Any other tips there? I'm just curious, by the way, what is the Female Quotient? What is your business model?
Well, the business model pre-pandemic was.
I know you rebooted it. That's why I asked.
We had to do a complete pivot. So pre-pandemic, all sponsorship, and I don't really like the word sponsorship, to be perfectly honest, because it is not really a pay for play. It is the power of the collective. It's an all for one. Absolutely. It's all about brands bringing it together, where the lounges are about all companies coming together to enable an equality lounge. So it's Fortune 500 sponsoring the lounge together at big industry conferences. So that really is the model, that we collectively come together to host these experiences at industry conferences. So it's brought to you by Procter & Gamble, by HP and NBCU, and all the biggest companies in the world, bringing together this experience so that everybody at the conference can come for free and have thought leadership together.
So what do you have on tap for the next CES? Let's just pick a big one.
We take a big suite at the Encore, and we do a walking tour. Actually, we started at CES. It was a place where I wanted to go to CES. I didn't want to be the only less than 3% of attendees were women. I once again didn't want to feel alone. So I called 4 girlfriends, said, walk the floor with me. If you know other women, invite them. 24 hours later, 50 women showed up, and 2 remarkable things happened. We walked the floor, every single guy's head turned, like, where the hell did all of you women come from? And that's when I coined the phrase, power of the pack. A woman alone is power, collectively we have impact. It was a whoosh moment. It was so invigorating to show up and not feel invisible. And the second thing was, I was surrounded by people just like me. We talked about work-life balance, imposter syndrome, all kinds of things that I've always experienced. And more business was done in a minute than, we all had power of the purse. We were all big, badass business women starting to do deals with one another and showing each other technology. And it was remarkable. And then 50 women turned to 150, turned to 350. And today we have over 50,000 women in our community that are all business women across 100 countries. And 50,000 turns to 100,000. And, it's pretty remarkable what happened from that moment.
Yeah, that's why I asked about partnering with incubators, accelerators around the world. How do you take the learnings from the last 2 years and reboot that into the future and scale it? And I just brought up CES as just, one show because it's one of the bigger ones that's opening up. But
Well,
yeah, just
CES is technology, but now we're at CES, and we're in finance, and we're at NBA All-Star, and we're at the NFL, and we're at the World Economic Forum, and we're at South by Southwest, and we're in fashion. So we're across every automotive, we're in every industry now.
And would you say that your focus is more, I know there's corporate partners, better word than sponsorships. Would you say it's more about female founders directional or in corporates, or are you still sticking with both?
We're across the board. So
yeah. Just checking on your reboot strategy. That's all. I think that makes sense. I mean, one of the things I teach and coach a lot at Kellogg is I've got one lecture about finding your purpose, and it's kind of, I set the students up to kind of fail in this lecture because I show them a Venn diagram and they think purpose is in the middle, but it's not. It's elusive. You have to find it on a regular quarterly basis. But I basically say, hey, you need to figure out how to balance fun, money, as well as impact. And between those connected tissues, occasionally you're going to find different bits of purpose. And one of the ways that we help people that work in large corporations is you need to start experiencing that outside of your job while you're still working, before you get fired, for instance, and checking out the entrepreneurial world. So I kind of love the way you're kind of doing the crossover stuff, because I think that is where there is so much impact to be made, because they either started out in big and they want to go small, or maybe they started in small companies or whatever, a family business, and they want to go into something larger. And that transition is a tough connected tissue, and it seems like you're helping there a lot as well.
You know what, Dean, you have one life. So I don't think it's an either or. You have an integrated life. So I think it's a double bottom line. I think it's an ROI, return on investment, return on impact. And, Mark Pritchard, the chief brand officer of Procter and Gamble, he says, it's brands for good, brands for growth. And it's what the ANA, the Association of National Advertisers, is all about. I think that, every single company today has to truly stand for something. And, if they are not purpose driven, then they will not succeed in life. And whether you are a small business or a big business, if you don't have purpose in your DNA, you will not succeed. And, today, even the Female Quotient, everything we do is purpose driven. We are creating right now a 4,000 square foot collab in Nairobi. And it is about closing the poverty gap and employing women. And everything we do is about giving back with generosity. For me, this part of my life is about giving back with generosity to women what I wish I had my entire corporate career, which was a network, a community of women. I was the only female CEO on the top 25 my entire career. I did not have a community of women supporting me. I did not have that. And so to me today,
it's clear, and you're bringing that to the masses. It's good.
Truly, it's the greatest gift that I have now, is to be surrounded by women on all levels, entry level, senior level, top down, bottom up, all around. I learn from Gen Z, I learned from C-suite, I learned from everybody. And it is the greatest gift that I have and that I could give. So I have never felt more privileged to serve and to be, in this network, this community, this FQ community, to give and to get. Yeah.
That's a good way to end, Shelley. Thanks. So two questions that came in. I sent on a note that you were going to be on. One is about kind of ageism. Let's just take that topic. So this is someone I actually know in Chicago, worked for a large bank. She's over 50 and one of the largest banks in the world. And they have been kind of cleaning house with the top tiers to save money, because they're very highly paid people, bringing in, younger, cheaper people. Clearly, that's what's been happening all over, as you mentioned. Long story short, she now, got pushed out. So any advice you'd give to I won't even call it late career, let's still call it mid-career, because I kind of like to be optimistic, but women at a certain age, any ideas you want to give them real quick, just 60 seconds on how to reboot their platform here?
Yeah, first of all, that bank, shame on them. They are missing out on, some of the best talent, in the world.
Totally, yes.
Age is a mindset. I'm turning 60 in March. I've never been sharper. I've never been crisper, and I've never been, I'm
Yep.
top of my game right now. So, age is wisdom. And I think that we bring, this is the first time in history we have 5 generations in the workplace. We all learn from one another and we all need each other. So I think that bank is missing out on a tremendous amount of wisdom. So shame on you, bank, whatever bank you are. And for whoever your friend is, have her call me. Age is a mindset. And I think that it's very important to understand that, and to understand your value, understand your worth, and to know that you are a badass at every age.
Speaking of age, last question. We did get one question. I know it's a Gen Zer. Just what kind of advice you want to give younger women coming in, best tactics on getting their first job, or how to achieve visibility and success, real quick?
I think, number one, appreciate those also that are older than you, that, understand that wisdom comes from every generation. So I think that is very important. A lot of young people don't want to work with people their parents' age.
It's not very popular. You're right. Yeah.
That is very important to understand. And for people that are older than you, understand that you learn a lot from the younger generation. So we all learn from each other. So that's number one. Number two, at a young age, know that your digital savvy is a great strength, but also don't get too snobby and it's spoiled. A lot of young people look for handouts every 3 seconds. They're looking for a raise, a promotion. So watch yourself, and know where digital fits into the context. Contextualize your knowledge. That is very important. So make sure that you use your knowledge and frame it in the context of a story, of how it fits into the big picture. But your wisdom is very important in today's day and age. And it is a tremendous strength. So make sure you use your wisdom as an advantage. Pair yourself up with senior leadership and teach them. Have them listen and learn, and make sure that they learn from you, but you learn from them, and contextualize and frame that. And that will be your greatest strength and your greatest asset, your greatest value on a team.
Perfect. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you, Shelley. You've been listening to Shelley Zalis. This is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.